What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the Stokastic channel, talking some college football DFS. Had a Tuesday, December the 20th. We have a 2-game slate. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. And if you're listening on podcasts, you can also leave a rating and review. Subscribe there too. That helps us a ton. And thank you if you've done that. We're brought to you today by No House Advantage, and No House Advantage provides a new and exciting way to play player props. Couple things you can do there. You can do verse the house. So just like it sounds, that's you verse the house. You're making lineups of player props, overs, unders, most of the major sports. But they also have pick'em contests where you're playing essentially in tournaments for big prizes. They've had 25K up top prizes, even some bigger ones, and you're competing against other people, making lineups on a confidence interval of how confident you are in certain player props. And one of the most important things in all of sports betting, DFS, you want to find the best edges, and overlay is one of them. That means when a contest doesn't full, it's still being paid out as if it is, essentially creating plus EV environments for you and your lineups. And better yet, there's a $50 first match deposit bonus on No House Advantage if you click the link in the video description below. Help you take advantage of that overlay, so make sure to check them out. To bring you behind the glass, data usage tool for college football, we're talking the Bowls on Tuesday. First one up, we've got San Jose State taking on Eastern Michigan. Two conferences I wanted to fade, but they're both playing each other. Tricky situation. 3.5-point spread in favor of San Jose State, 52.5 total overall. Not the best, but we'll talk about Liberty and Toledo next, and it's essentially the same total here. So it's kind of a unique environment slate-wise. We'll start with San Jose State. 67th in pace, 57.3% pass rate for them. Excellent defensive line and a porous offensive line, actually. Polar opposites on each side of the ball in the trenches. But at quarterback, we have Chevon Cordero, veteran, former Hawaii signal caller. He averages about 262 yards per game on nearly 35 attempts, so the volume's there. Efficiency is actually decent for Cordero. He has plenty of outs to a 300-yard bonus, and he's mobile. 215 rush yards. He's actually shown a lot more mobility in the past. It's just in this spot and in this game and on this team, his offensive line has left him high and dry a couple times. So you can see the 41 sacks have really limited the upside for him. But Eastern Michigan's not the best pass rush, and we're talking about a MAC team here. So I'm expecting him to remain a little more upright than maybe we've seen in some other game environments. The backfield's pretty cut and dry here. Kyrie Robinson has been working as the lead back, and the only other back to carry the ball in the last 4 weeks is Isaac Jernigan. So Kyrie Robinson, if they're playing from a lead, you can expect near the 24 carries he saw in the last game. If they play from behind, you're going to see more in that like 10 to 15 range as you saw in the 3 games prior. But again, they're pretty resounding favorites here. I think he's a solid play in tournaments. And like due to lack of options, you might end up getting to him in cash too. We'll see. We'll talk through it all. At receiver, air raid offense, you obviously want pieces of this. Number 1 receiver is Elijah Cooks, and he's 78,800, but he averages 90 yards per game, 8.9 targets per game. He's going for 1,000 yards in this spot. No issues with him whatsoever. I think he's one of the best receiver plays on the slate, and I'm going to be making him a priority. It's pretty cut and dry here. Justin Lockhart also had a 91% route rate. They're the only 2 receivers above 90% in the last game, so I'm very confident in Lockhart as well. He's not going to be targeted as much as Cooks, but that is reflected in price, and 4,600 is a very good value for him. Wide receiver 3 is Jermaine Braddock. He had a 69% route rate. Just going to rotate a little bit here. We talked about Jernigan playing a little bit, but you also had Mekhi Miller mix on the field for routes. So he's not the locked-in wide receiver 3, but he's very clearly ahead of everybody else. So I'm comfortable getting to him at 3,600 as well if you just need a punt. Last situation to talk about, San Jose State lost tight end Dominic Mazzotti earlier in the year, and they've had Jackson Kanan step right into his role, and it's really been just him. They're not rotating at all. He's participated in at least 80% of the routes in 3 straight games, and really good target value for him too. Stone minimum. I think there's merit to playing him over Jermaine Braddock perhaps, but make sure you just watch Mazzotti. I don't think he plays, but just check Twitter before the game if you're looking at Jackson Kanan. Eastern Michigan, they're pretty middling across the board, 86th in pace. They have a 46% pass rate. I think that could be elevated. Austin Smith went down for them earlier in the year, so they've been using Taylor Powell pretty consistently now. He's the exact opposite. Can't run whatsoever, negative 82 rush yards, but does throw the ball well. 226 yards per game on 30 attempts. That's depressed because of a couple games where these guys both played. But overall, I think Powell helps the offense from a passing perspective. Again, I would just watch pregame warmups and see that he is taking first-team reps. You never know with MAC teams. But for DFS, I should say, I think he's probably third on the list of quarterbacks so far. You've got a clear starter in Cordero, and then I think a clear starter in DeQuan Finn. But from there, you get risky for GPPs if you want. The backfield, Samson Evans, he's going to carry the ball a million times regardless of what game script they're in. He averages 22 touches per game, 99.5 rushing yards. This team will use him occasionally as a receiver, but he only has a 6% target share. It leaves a little bit to be desired. He mostly gets there on the ground, and tough matchup. The best part of San Jose State's defense is their defensive line, so it's not going to be easy for him, but the workload is phenomenal for Evans. I think he's probably in cash too, depending on your build. Then at receiver, again, I do believe Taylor Powell helps receivers out for this team. Hassan Beydoun and Tanner Canu are the two guys you're looking at most likely here, most likely to succeed, most consistent route rates, 95% last game for Beydoun, 87% for Tanner Canu. And from there, you actually had Dylan Drummond. He's been pretty consistent too, 79%. And then closing it out was Darius Lassiter at 59%. This team will go four wide quite a bit. When they don't, you're going to see Gunnar Oaks. He's going to be the main tight end. But honestly, looking at the receivers, I think Beydoun should be number one. Tanner Canu should be two. And then we're looking at Dylan Drummond, 3 for me. Lassiter, 4. They're all pretty efficiently priced, Lassiter being the cheapest I would go to. And what this suggests to me is if you're playing multiple lineups, you're probably mixing and matching. If you're playing just one, I'm going to default to Hassan Beydoun. Going to the second game, Toledo takes on Liberty. 3.5-point spread in favor of Toledo. 53.5 total, so you can see how similar these games truly are. But I think there's a few more outs to an over here. You have two really fast teams. Toledo's 27th in pace. Liberty's 31st. Pass rates, they're both at 46%. Toledo should have a healthy DeQuan Finn. He played in the MAC championship. He's very mobile. 608 rush yards this year for DeQuan Finn is excellent. Only averages 194 per game as a passer. That's depressed a little bit because of recent games where he did not play the full allotment of snaps due to injury, but I would expect DeQuan Finn around that 200 mark. He's 6,700, and he's very clearly the starter for this team. I think him and Cordero make the most sense for cash games. At running back, we saw the return of Micah Kelly. He had been the lead back for them towards the end of the year, missed their season finale before they went to the MAC championship, returned from injury, and immediately popped back up for 17 carries. So Micah Kelly, he's kind of priced in between Jock Stewart and Penny Boone. He should be the most expensive. They're using Micah Kelly as the lead back, Jock Stewart as the change of pace, and Penny Boone is an afterthought, honestly, at this point. 1 carry in the MAC championship for Penny Boone. Tough to see for him. So definitely rank them number 1, Kelly, number 2, Stewart, number 3, Boone for the backs. At receiver, we've seen them essentially commit to Jerwan Newton, and the rest is a rotation, at least of late. And that makes sense salary-wise here. I do think you could get to the Eastern Michigan receivers over these Toledo guys, just better volume in a vacuum. But there certainly is upside here. We're talking about a favorite. And again, it's just Jerwan Newton, most consistent receiver, at least 90% of the routes in 7 straight games. Devin Maddox is the 2. He's bounced around a little bit more, but last week he did jump back up to 92%. So I think the price is warranted on Maddox. Pretty clearly the wide receiver 2 there. Third, in a game where they had to put all their chips down against Ohio in the MAC championship, they did move Demir Blankumsey into more of a just locked-in role, but it was still only 65%. Tight end Jamal Turner, he's locked in around 65% too. That hasn't wavered much recently. Those are your ancillary plays here, but you could also go a little cheaper, perhaps. On occasion, they've had spike weeks for Michael Barkley or Thomas Zerios. I don't think those are likely here, so I'm probably limiting this to Turner as the cheapest play I'll get to. But ultimately, I think Newton is the best price-adjusted play, even at the expensive tag for Toledo receivers. For Liberty at quarterback, oh man, this is going to be a mess. Apparently, Caden Salter is going to play. There was an ESPN report that was not confident he'll play the full allotment of snaps. And they think Jonathan Bennett is going to play a fair amount too. Jonathan Bennett leads the team in passing. Salter's been banged up all season long. He's a dynamic rusher, and he's actually efficient as a passer for the most part when he's out there. But for DFS, outside of large tournaments, I'm thinking we probably see two guys here. Disaster. We'll see. Monitor this up to game time. We might get reports in pregame warmups. If one guy's clearly taking all the first team reps, maybe it's a late news Salter pivot for tournaments, but it's going to be hard to decipher this news. At running back, unfortunately, this team lost Day Hunter earlier in the year. Day Hunter, sometimes he goes by. He had been playing out of his mind. They've moved to a committee between Shedro Lewis and TJ Green for the most part. I think Shedro Lewis leads this committee, but I think it's probably pretty close here. We've seen both of these guys banged up over the last 4 games at various points. In their last game, they got destroyed by New Mexico State. So I think there's a little noise there, but Shedro Lewis would be the preferred option over TJ Green, but I think we're looking at more GPP plays than anything else. For the receivers, and oh boy, this is going to be a fun situation to break down. They rotate guys like no other, which creates an interesting environment for GPPs, but it's a headache if you're playing anything but that. The first thing to mention here is that Javian Lofton hit the transfer portal. He had not been playing a ton anyway, but just worth noting. To start, I do agree that Demario Douglas is probably the wide receiver 1. He comes in with the biggest price tag on the slate. He averages 82 yards per game and 8.7 targets. He's averaged 10.8 targets over the last 4, so he's very involved, and his routes reflect it. Last 4 games, 97%, 84%, 72%, 77%. I think he makes sense. Noah Firth isn't too far behind him in routes. Last 3 games, 86%, 72%, 68%. Now, targets are vastly different, but Noah Firth is the second leading receiver on this team. 444 yards. It's very far behind Demario Douglas. It's 980, but he's seen at least 4 targets in 3 straight games. I think Firth is in play at 4,300. From here, we're basically looking at mixing and matching value, guys. Caleb Snead, he's had at least a 57% route rate 3 straight games. He's 3,200. Okay. CJ Yarbrough, his routes have been pretty bad. 14%, 28%, 35% last 3 games. You can go to Trayon Sibley, 13%, 13%, 14% last 3 games. Tight end Jerome Jackson, routes are 57%, 60%, and 39%. You get the point. It's pretty gross once you get behind the top 2 or 3 guys here. Could you throw a dart on Yarbrough, Sibley, Jerome Jackson? Maybe. I think if I'm doing that, it's probably Yarbrough or Jackson, but I don't feel good about either one. It's a dicey situation for Liberty among their pass catchers. But just 2 games up, 2 games down. That'll do it for us today. Let me know in the comment section what you think. If I missed something, if there's something you'd like to add, I'd love to hear it. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Matt_Kajeski if you'd like to chop it up more as well. And hit the thumbs up button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. It means a ton if you've done that, so thank you. And we'll catch you guys again tomorrow. We've got bowl games most of the week, and we'll do every single bowl game. So don't miss it. We'll be back then, and good luck.